Hi everyone, my name is Aditi Shivaramakrishnan. I am an arts manager, editor, and writer in Singapore.
Hello, my name is Abdullah Mohammed Saad. I'm the writer-director of Rehana, Maryam, Noor. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, thank you so much. So Saad, your first feature film, Live from Dhaka, won Best Director and Best Performance at the 27th Singapore International Film Festival. How does it feel to be back?
I'm so happy and I'm so honored to be back. It's a magical feeling because Singapore International Film Festival launched my film career in 2016. So it kind of feels like coming back to home. I'm so thankful to the festival team to inviting us back. It means a lot. Thanks so much.
That's great. I'm sure the audiences are also really happy to view your second feature film, and we hope that you can be in Singapore in person sometime soon. So what really struck me about Rehana, Maryam, Noor is how it really speaks to a critique of the global Me Too movement, and therefore it feels very timely. So what I observed is that in the pursuit of justice, sometimes the survivors or victims, whether it's of sexual assault or some other kind of injustice, sometimes become a kind of pawn in someone else's pursuit of justice. Maybe they get too much visibility, which they are not actually equipped for, or they become part of someone else's agenda. Is this something that you wanted to explore in this film?
To be honest, I don't consider myself as a political filmmaker. I mean, I didn't set out to critique the movement intentionally or give a certain message. I think all I wanted to do was investigate Rehana and examine her, try to understand her as a person, as a woman who becomes gradually obsessed to seek justice. I think I wanted to raise questions about the choices she made. In this case, you're talking about how she presents herself as a victim. I think this is one of the questions that I wanted to raise, that the choice she made was whether was it right or wrong. From a very strict moral point of view, you can say that what she did perhaps not right, because the victim herself didn't want to speak for herself. But then when you see her reality and the things she has been going through, then it becomes kind of complex to take a side, you know what I mean? So these are the things that I was fascinated and wanted to examine. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, it is very fascinating because, of course, even though I had a strong reaction as to why she would push Annie to kind of declare what happened to her, it becomes complicated for us as the audience because Rehana decides to present herself as the victim, and then in doing so is willing to take on all the backlash that the actual victims would face. So she's, of course, a character that is very motivated by her ideals. You know, she has strong moral convictions and this desire for justice. Would you also say that she is motivated by a certain kind of anger as well?
I think the very first image of Rehana in my head was her stubbornness. So, one of the reasons that I got fascinated about her is because she is kind of a person who does not look away, who does not just accept things and move on. Unlike me or many of us, we don't want trouble. We don't want to get involved with other people's trouble. But she gets involved, and I wanted to convey that feeling that she has been suppressing so many emotions for so many years that so when I started writing about her, it came to me naturally that she got angrier and angrier, and at some point she's gonna explode. I knew that. How long you can take it? So it kind of came to me very naturally, not that I calculated it into my screenplay. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even living in a context that's in some ways quite different from hers, I think some of the small things and the big things that she faces daily in her home life, in her career, in society are actually quite relatable for many women around the world.
Right.
So I was quite curious as well when you have said before in interviews that the landscape of the film is Rehana's face.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a really beautiful image. And I think we as viewers really get to see that because the camera is basically following her face for the whole film. What was your rehearsal and directorial process like with Asmeri, who plays Rehana?
We actually took a lot of time to prepare. We rehearsed for about 9 months on and off. So I didn't give her the whole screenplay at the very early stage of the preparation. I kind of gave her like 5 pages, 10 pages, and we kind of built it together step by step. And I could feel from the very early stage of the preparation that she relates to Rehana. She could relate to Rehana viscerally. I mean, and she has some personal connections to the film, and so and we talked a lot. We discussed about a lot about the gender politics, about parenting, about family, about everything. So I kind of improved the screenplay as we rehearsed and prepared ourselves with all the blockings and everything. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear how it was a collaborative process. And I think that sense of trust really comes across when watching the film as well, the trust that you would have built over this long process.
Thank you. Thank you.
So something else that is very interesting and very striking is some of the formal choices in the film. It's very distinctive. So the whole film, first of all, is set within the confines of the medical college. Could you share more about this decision and this choice?
Actually, in the beginning, it was not a chamber drama. I turned it into chamber drama in I think in 5th draft. I think the reason is that I felt that something was missing in my earlier drafts. And what I missed is that I could not create the atmosphere. I could not convey the feeling of Rehana being trapped into this situation, in this world from where she sees no escape. It's a situation where she has to confront and deal with it. So I felt that if I turn it into a chamber piece, then my audience would be able to be more relate to her inner turmoils and how she has been suppressing things over the years. So and be a part of her journey.
Yes, definitely. And even within the film, even though it's a chamber drama, it's actually, there are so many layers and enclosed spaces. For example, so much is taking place behind closed doors, whether it's the closed doors of the office or whether it's the confrontation that takes place in the restroom, whether it's in the other spaces within the premises. So that was very interesting. And then you also, of course, have this use of a bluish color palette for the film. Could you share more about that as well?
I think it's almost the same reason. When I decided to make it a chamber piece, I immediately felt that I have to isolate this world from the outer world. I wanted my audience to concentrate solely in this world. So I felt that maybe a particular hue would help me create the atmosphere subconsciously in my audience's mind, and it kind of came to me intuitively. It's not like that I challenged myself and calculated, but I felt that this bluish hue would create that certain anxiety and the uncertainty, at the same time a little bit melancholia, which should ultimately help me to create the atmosphere in my audience's mind. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I think for me, it also helped to really, it avoids distraction and really helps to keep the focus on the dialogue, on Rehana herself. And you can almost see what is going through her mind, even if she's not saying it out loud. Yes. Could Could you also share a little more about your editing process and the use of sound? As I rewatched the film before our conversation, I felt that the sound really adds to the sense of tension that we feel as well.
Thanks for asking this question.
Okay, that's great.
I don't get this question often, but
Okay.
it's interesting. Regarding editing, I don't. I try not to be sentimental. I mean, I use a little bit. I become a little bit harsh when I edit because I try to leave some space for so that my audience can interpret for themselves. And so I try to raise question and leave the scene as soon as I can, so that it kind of formulates in my audience's mind and they can create their own world in their mind. So that's how I think a film becomes more richer. And in terms of sound, we did actually location sound, which was not so easy to do in Dhaka. If you have any idea of Dhaka, you would know that it's very noisy and chaotic. So the whole team has to support to achieve the sound. And in terms of sound design, I prefer if I can convey the feeling through sound. I try not to do it with image, because you listen to the sound of raining a lot of times throughout the film, but I rarely show the actual raining. So I think that's how, with the help of this kind of sound design, I can make it more compact and focused to my narrative.
Thanks for sharing. So I've not had the chance to visit Bangladesh, but have been to India a few times and definitely have a sense of, how chaotic it is. So the sound is really masterful. I think it also contributes to this feeling that though the film is taking place within the enclosed space of the medical college, the outside world is always threatening to kind of...
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a great observation. Thank you.
Thank you. So whether it's the phone calls she receives or the students that are protesting, that was very interesting as well.
Thank you.
Yes, and let's chat a little bit more about editing. I think it's something that I have an interest in as well, though
sure.
I tend to edit written texts, not films. I was curious whether you work collaboratively with other editors to edit your films, or if you do so yourself, and if you find it challenging to approach editing your own work with a critical eye, because you said you're not sentimental about it.
To be honest, I always do my own editing. I mean, I of course share my versions with my friends and my team members on how they feel when I do my first cut from the second cut and third cut. But I cannot think of letting someone else edit my film. I mean, the pacing of my thinking process and sharing with another editor and let him or her do the edit, it gets too chaotic. I mean, it's better if I do it myself, and when I feel like that maybe it's time to test it, how are my audience going to respond, so then I share it with my team members and try to know their feelings about it.
That's very interesting, because I always edit other people's works, and like you said, it's always like a very gentle dance of compromise and of seeking to understand where the artist is coming from. So in your, I think the strong voice definitely comes across.
It's hard to be brutal when you edit other people's stuff,
Yes,
I mean, when you do it for your own things, you can be as honest as possible and just be the most brutal viewer as yourself.
That's a very refreshing perspective, because some filmmakers would also say that they feel
it's a trap. Like,
yes, that they cannot edit their own work objectively or sentimentally.
Right.
Yes.
There's the other side of it too.
Yes, definitely. Let's talk maybe a little about the journey from your first feature film to this one. Do you feel that there are any themes that you continue to explore, or any stylistic choices that resonate between the two films and that you may pursue in the future as well?
That's a very interesting question. Uh, Actually, there's an interesting fact. Actually, I was working on a different material after I did my first film. I wrote it for like 5 or 6 months. Then I kind of realized that I don't probably understand the character enough, or I don't have the enough depth to write about him. So then I went back to Rehana, and actually I thought of Rehana way before I did my first film. I don't know, I already have said it to you or not. At first I was thinking of from a victim's point of view, but then I realized that I could not possibly tell the story from a victim's point of view unless I have gone through the same experience, all that. So when I got the idea of telling the story from witness point of view, then I understood it and I could tell it more honestly and truthfully. I'm saying this to you because what I found about my writing is that I have to write from my personal experience and my personal observations. I realized after my first film that I cannot do it otherwise. And this about writing and filmmaking choice wise, I always prefer to tell the story from a single point of view. It's obvious that I prefer close range because as you already mentioned it before, my true landscape of my film is the face of my protagonist. So I want to capture every motion, everything, every muscle contraction of my protagonist's face, because that's what I'm fascinated about. What my protagonist is projecting, and even when she's not projecting too. So that's what I'm fascinated about. So I think I carried it from my first film to second film, and right at this moment, I think that's what's gonna happen in my third film too.
Yes, of course. There are always so many nuances to capture in each person's face.
Yes,
and yes, faces are really fascinating to me.
It never stops amazing you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Human face, the most mysterious thing in this world.
Yes, and I think it's become a little more mysterious because with the pandemic, we have to wear face masks a lot in Singapore. And it's only then that I realized that, so much is conveyed, even non-verbally, through our faces, or as you so wonderfully put it, even in the moments when someone is quite unguarded, when they're not acting, so to speak, even when they're just existing, a lot is said through our faces.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms.
Yeah. So another very interesting point that you made was that you ultimately decided to write this story through the perspective of the witness or the bystander. I'm really glad that eventually you made that choice, because I think it raises a very relevant question for all of us as the audience, which is that, like you said, Rehana doesn't look away when so many of us might feel compelled to. And of course, the truth will supposedly set us free, but it can also be very difficult to stomach and to swallow. So this film really raises the question of, if we are the witness, what do we do next? How far do we go, I think, is what really came to mind. So maybe we can chat a little bit about the ending of the film. So the ending of the film is, of course, this will be screening after the audience has watched the film, so we can chat about it.
Okay, yes. Great.
So
no spoilers. Okay.
Yes, no spoilers. So of course, the ending of the film is really tense. I just rewatched it again, and I had to take a few moments to calm down. So there were so many interesting parallels that struck me between how Rehana is treated by the medical college's principal and how she, in the scene, treats her daughter. So even the medical college's principal at first affirmed what Rehana had experienced. She said, "Oh, I do want to support you," but then ultimately she kind of used her authority to coerce Rehana out of furthering this process of seeking justice. And in the same way, I noticed how Rehana has all along kind of led her daughter to believe that they will make it to the school concert and that their family members will come. But eventually, it's quite heartbreaking how she doesn't even just come out and say at first, "We're not going to go." She kind of hopes that maybe her daughter will get the idea, or that maybe it's very difficult for her to, of course, let down her daughter in this way. So I thought that was a very interesting parallel. And so I guess in the sense, the unequal power dynamics between the institution and Rehana are kind of reproduced, as well as its violence is seen in this relationship between Rehana and her daughter. And after she kind of locks her daughter into the room, I was really struck by the fact that, of course, the camera lingers on her face as it does in this film, but right in the background, we can actually see the nameplate on her office door, which states her full name with a doctor in front. It states her position and that she's a member of this medical college. So for me, in that moment, the two things really came together, and we see how she, in her pursuit of justice, kind of ironically acted the same way that the institution acted unfairly towards her. So there was just so much to consider and unpack that the film kind of leaves us with. Yeah. Would you be able to share a little more about maybe how you approach this process, as well as working with the actress that plays the daughter, because she does a wonderful job?
I was so invested into your interpretation that I kind of lost the question. Could you kindly repeat?
Oh, no problem. So I was just sharing a little bit about what I got from the ending and how it leaves us a lot to think about. Could you share more about how you maybe decided on the ending and how you actually shot the sequence as well, maybe including how you worked with a child actor in the scene?
Well, about constructing the last scene, I think what I wanted to do is raise this question that how do you raise your daughter in this world? I took the time to explain Rehana's life, what she has been going through, and here's the situation now, whether she can make her daughter apology for something she didn't do and have a nice show and be happy, and there's this other choice that she has to be strict and harsh enough, but she doesn't want her daughter to be apologetic. I mean, so that was the question I wanted to raise. I mean, what is the right way to raise your daughter in this world? Do you want your daughter to be apologetic and live a compromised life, or do you want her to stand up for herself and then suffer every moment in her life? So what is the right way to raise your daughter, or is there any? So Rehana makes her choices. Rehana, from her point of view, she believes that her daughter should not apologize for something she didn't do. So she makes her choices. Then through her choices, I want to raise this question whether she did was right or wrong. I think that was the question I wanted to raise. And have I answered your question?
Yes, definitely. Thanks for sharing that. Okay. So it's a very difficult question, I think. Yeah, probably one that people spend their whole lives, trying to figure out. And that's why I guess parenting is so challenging, because
you
learn what works and what doesn't as you go along.
Right. So I grew up in a family with 3 elder sisters, and I see them through my whole life, and they have had a huge influence on me. So I've seen them as sisters, as daughters, and as professional mothers. So it kind of stuck with me. And to be honest, I've been waiting for the ending for a long time, that I've been writing for like 2.5 years. when I got that ending, when I had this interesting question in my mind, that's when I decided, okay, maybe I'm going to make this film. So that was the last piece of puzzle that has been missing
I see.
for me for a long time.
All right.
And in terms of Imu's acting, I must say, first of all, I'm very lucky to have found her. She's not an actor. My executive producer, one day my executive producer went to a park with his son, and he saw her there, and they talked, and he brought her back to our office, and we talked. And I'm so lucky that, she's so intuitive and so smart. I mean, of course, we did like 5 months of rehearsal, and I kind of let Badhon, Ajmirak Badhon, who played the central role, I kind of directed through her. I mean, I always talked with Zaima, who played Imo. I didn't talk about acting vividly with her. I mean, I kind of tried to create the atmosphere on the set so that she trusts me and Badhon, and I kind of directed her through Badhon, what she has to do, when she has to take pauses, when she has to be angry, when she has to be sad. So Badhon kind of directed her for me. So I felt that was the best way to bring the best performance from her, because she immediately connected to Badhon. Badhon was kind of like her mother figure, and Badhon quickly formed the bond. So they have this relationship where they went to each other's house, know both families, the families invited each other families. So I had to be strategic. I had to do so many things to reach that point. Yeah.
Yes, actually, now that you have shared more, I'm thinking about how it really makes a difference to Rehana's character and to the story, that one, that she's a parent, two, that her child is a daughter who is about that age, because then it becomes not just a question of her pursuing justice, but it really has these implications that come across and that raise questions, like you said, about how to raise a child, especially a daughter, in this context and in this climate. And I think children as well have a very innate and natural kind of sense of justice and of right and wrong, which probably comes across in the actress's performance as well.
I hope so.
Yes. I think I've covered the questions that I had. Was there anything else that you are also keen to talk about? We can definitely chat further.
I would like to just share that the film is a result of an incredible team effort. I mean, I'm grateful to all my brilliant cast members, especially Ajmirak Badhon, for trusting me, for her relentless effort. She made this film into her life's mission. And my friends, my producers, my cinematographer, sound designer, production designer, my casting director, my colorist. I mean, each and every member of the film gave their best. I wouldn't be talking to you today without their sacrifice and commitment. So I am so lucky to find these people who trusted me and became a part of my journey. And all the credit goes to them.
Yes, it's really wonderful to see how this co-production between different countries and so many collaborators has also traveled to different countries.
Yeah, it's actually quite a small team. It's like 20 crew on the set. So we were very close and close friends and everything. Yeah.
Yes, and it has traveled to quite a few countries and actually resonated with many international audiences, which I think also really speaks to the timeliness and the universality of this story, even though it is set in one particular city. Thank you so much, Saad, for chatting with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
really
having
wonderful.
me.
So thanks everyone again for watching Rehana, Maryam, Noor. Do check out the various other films and programs at the Singapore International Film Festival, which runs till 5th December. And you can visit sgiff.com for more information. See you.
See you.
Bye.